Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Madison, and for today's video, I'm going to do a little bit of an update video. And I know that I've been doing quite a bit of update videos recently, and I do apologize for that, but it's important to those of you that have been following my channel so that you guys aren't completely broadsided by what I'm about to do in this video. And plus, I kind of need this week in order to kind of educate myself a little bit on at least one of the things that I'm going to be covering today. As you can see, I have Blender up on the screen right now, and that's the topic of discussion for today. Blender. Vanilla Blender is basically what Blender is when you first download it with no paid plugins. Now, Blender does install with some free plugins, actually quite a bit of them, that can significantly change the interface, that can improve the vanilla workflow a bit here and there, as well as provide you with a few extra models, like trees and stuff like that, within just a click or two, you could go ahead and have a tree that's able to be fully rendered and everything. It's kind of cool. You can have measuring tools and all that. You can access them by going to Edit, Preferences, and then going to Add-ons on the left panel there. But most of them are left inactive because it's impossible for the Blender Foundation to really know what kind of industry you specifically are working in. And so if you want to activate some of these so that you can quickly create something like floor plans, or let's say you're a completely different type of 3D artist and you're making game assets, you can activate the plugins that are good for that, or whatever. Some of these plugins are specifically designed for exactly those kinds of workflows. So most of them are just not active until you activate them. So the option is all up to you which ones you want to activate and which ones you want to leave inactive, depending on your workflow and how you use Blender. Ultimately, I don't think that there's anyone that uses Blender that doesn't at least use some of these free plugins that launch with Blender just by default. As you can see, there's a good number of them, and that's great. Vanilla Blender with all of their free plugins are great, and they really do improve the user interface and the workflow. But that doesn't mean that Vanilla Blender isn't unnecessarily convoluted in its workflow, because it is. It's very convoluted. My main gripe with Vanilla Blender is that just to add small details to the model that you're working on, it can sometimes force you to pay way too much attention to Blender's interface rather than the actual creation workflow. And that's not a pleasant user experience. It never is with any type of software. If you're just focusing on the interface and not on the creation process of whatever it is that the software is designed to help you create, then it's just a terrible workflow. It forces you to have an overly convoluted workflow, basically, is what I'm kind of trying to say here. Just making a radial array, as an example, requires way too many steps. And even if you remember all of those steps, it's easy to get confused in the process and do it wrong 5 or 6 times until finally you get it right. And even when you get it right, it's probably just ever so slightly off, which is frustrating. And when you're someone that not only just wants to learn Blender, but also wants to see what you can do to incorporate Blender's capabilities in working freelance or working on a deadline or working in some kind of industry, there's not many people, not very many clients, not many customers that are willing to spend the extra money for you to do something 5 or 6 times incorrectly for you to finally find out how to do it correctly, just simply because you have an overly convoluted workflow that takes twice as long, or sometimes 3 times as long, as someone else that's able to do the job in maybe a quarter of the time that you're able to do it, because they're either using a different kind of software or they're just using a few paid plugins that aren't really that expensive, actually. As a result, the professionals are using the paid plugins. They really, all of the professionals using Blender, or at least most of them that are working with Blender big time, are using the paid plugins. And although I have every intention of learning more and more about vanilla Blender, because that's ultimately the back end and the foundation of what these paid plugins are working with, in this video, I'm going to actually purchase a few paid plugins. And in the future, who knows, maybe I might get a few more down the road. But in this video, I want to zero in on 3 big ones, okay? It's weird because I don't think I'm alone in feeling like when I get a free piece of software, I just want to crack it open and I don't really want to pay for anything. But when it's all said and done, the time invested in vanilla Blender, it just takes so much time. It's so time consuming, and people, they like to use the phrase time is money, or at the very least, if it's not money, time is valuable. It's valuable to me. I have a very limited amount of it every single day, at least very limited amount of free time to work on Blender. So the time is so expensive when I use Blender that it's more expensive than the $80 necessary to have a no-nonsense workflow and to significantly speed up my workflow with a few paid plugins. Okay, that's the way that I'm looking at this. And when you really think about it, $80 is nothing when compared to what Photoshop used to be back in the day when you could actually purchase Photoshop. It's nothing when compared to what AutoCAD used to cost back in the day when you could actually purchase AutoCAD, and it's nothing in comparison to the never-ending price tag when compared to the yearly rental price on AutoCAD and Photoshop. And generally most commercial software out there, $80 is fairly inexpensive. Now, I'm not trying to throw out a sales pitch or anything, but this is just my line of reasoning. And generally what I've noticed is that I'm just wasting time with vanilla Blender when I can spend an hour on one tiny little detail on a model and I still have the whole rest of the model to work on. It's come to the point to where I just never want to use Blender, especially in the summer, because I live in a desert with crappy air conditioning, and it's really hard to be patient and to have the attention span necessary to focus on working on 3D software that's uncooperative. And I just become overwhelmed, frustrated, and I just abandon whatever Blender project that I had planned for the week. And so I just wind up making the video for the week about something completely different. And that's frustrating to me, and I'm sure that there's a lot of you that like watching my Blender content and would like to see more of it. And I just can't, just because of that. This is an example of how stupid vanilla Blender can be. So like if I press Shift A and add, say, a cube, okay, and then I scale it down, press numpad 3 and then move it up here, all right? Let's go ahead and select this other one. I have loop tools enabled, so I can press Control minus loop tools. If you don't know, you just go edit preferences and then you type in loop, and it's a quick way to do things like Boolean functions. And Booleans are something that I've been trying to avoid in vanilla Blender because it's such a nightmare. Now, if I go here and go apply, I can apply it. But the thing is, well, yeah, I can apply it and then I can go ahead and grab this one and delete it, no problem, right? But that's destructive editing. So if I just press Control Z a couple times until that modifier appears, then everything's good. But if I grab this one and press Shift D and then right click, press numpad 3 and grab it to where it's kind of as an inset in there and press Control slash, oh wait, yeah, I need to grab this other object and press Control slash. I now have this cutter, okay? And yeah, you know, there's some shading problem going on right there, but that's not important for at least this video. This isn't really a full-on tutorial or anything like that. Now, if I go apply, it's all grayed out. I'm not able to, and it says, let's see, when I try to apply, okay, for some reason it's, okay, so it's got some sort of shared data going on is what it is. So if I go over here to object data and I click this 2 here, I think, then everything should be good. And I should be able to just quickly apply these modifiers, right? And so I can go ahead and delete both of these, and you know, if I click on this object and go into edit mode, we can see that the vertices are good. By and large, you know, that one might need to be dissolved. Let's see, can I dissolve that one? Yeah, I dissolved that vertex. It was not needed. Here's another one. So yeah, you know, that's not too difficult, but the thing is if you have a complex shape and you want to start applying like 50 different booleans, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. And just to do this alone took a whole bunch of clicks. And that's the thing with when I'm working with a piece of software, the more I'm clicking my mouse with the least amount of progression towards the goal, the less and less I happen to like that software because it takes forever to do anything. Now over here on YouTube, there's this guy's channel called Josh Gambrell. I've been watching this guy's videos for a little while here, and although he has a number of vanilla Blender tutorials out there, here and there, and I appreciate them, I still wind up hating the entire workflow in order to create that 3D model. But what I appreciate most about what I'm watching on his channel is when he's coming out with hard ops and box cutter tutorials and using Mesh Machine instead of Blender. In other words, when I see him using these 3 plugins, it's like watching a magical dream workflow where he's accomplishing tasks in his sculpting process or modeling process that takes a fraction of the time as what it would take with vanilla Blender. And I want that workflow. And in my opinion, as of right now at least, and of course this is an opinion, Josh Gambrell has the best tutorials on Blender, in my opinion. And I'm not able to understand exactly what he's doing with these paid plugins right now because I don't have them and I've never used them, but I just love watching them. It's amazing. Hell, it's full-on life-changing from what I've witnessed from the videos about box cutter, hard ops, Mesh Machine, all of it. I mean, just look at Mesh Machine. I'm going to play this Mesh Machine demo without any audio, but with my commentary, okay? Look at how much topology he's able to create, destroy, or restructure with just a few clicks. This is something that really frustrates me with vanilla Blender. When I commit to destructive editing, if I need to make a significant change to the topology, it takes way too much time. I mean, it takes so much time that you might as well just start over on the whole project, most of the time it seems like this, and figure out a better way to create the mesh to begin with. And that's just how it is most of the time, or at least that's how it feels. I mean, look at all of that topology he's juggling around, and it's all uniform, orderly, and fast. And this is a destructive workflow. This isn't like Booleans and such like that, or Booleans and modifiers working in concert with one another. With Mesh Machine alone, you can quickly take a high poly mesh, and once you bake all of that information into textures, UV maps, bump maps, all that information, etc., you're able to quickly turn that high poly mesh into a low poly mesh, and you're able to apply all of that information to your low poly mesh to make it look like your high poly mesh version. It's really cool. Of course, you can do all of this without the plugin, but it'll take you forever. One thing that frustrates me with vanilla Blender is when you create a bevel and several hours down the road, you realize you didn't bevel everything that needed bevels. And I'm talking about destructive editing here. And so you have to manually fix everything, every vertice, every edge that pertains to that bevel until you can resume, finally, where you left off. And we're talking about hours and hours and hours of work, sometimes months of work, depending on how complex the sculpt is, just to take a few steps backward in order to take one step forward. But with Mesh Machine, they have a tool that allows you to quickly unbevel an object with a few clicks rather than a few million, or even maybe a few billion, okay? And I'm not over-exaggerating here. Just a few clicks versus a few million, or possibly billion. I'm gonna take the 2 or 3 clicks, okay, over the million and billion workflow, okay? The fewer number of times that I need to click the mouse and move it around and all that, the better. That's the way software should work. And look at this unscrew tool. Of course, they say it's basically the F word, the un-F word. The topology is all screwed up, and with a click and drag, he's able to fix it with no effort at all. Could you imagine trying to fix that? Just one vertice, one edge at a time? That sounds like an absolute and total nightmare. I mean, all the way to the point to where hell sounds like a good alternative. And look at this corner tool that he's using here. You're able to change the direction of your edge and face flow with only a few clicks instead of having to babysit the entire model's topology one vertice at a time. I've done that, and it's a nightmare. And Booleans can leave a ton of disconnected vertices all over the place, tons of disconnected edges, and having to individually auto-merge each and every single one of those vertices just one by one just takes hours and days and sometimes months, depending on the complexity of your model. And here you can see this guy is able to just fix all of that in just 2 or 3 seconds. It's just mind-blowing. I want that workflow. I want to save the weeks and months necessary to complete what should be a simple task. And as much as I've been telling myself that I don't need to spend the money on these paid plugins, it just doesn't make sense after seeing this, because the time invested in moving all of those vertices one at a time is far more expensive than the plugin itself. But look, Mesh Machine is $40, okay? That's kind of on the higher, more expensive end of things when it comes to plugins. It's one of the more expensive ones. Let's say you want to make 30 different sculpts for a project that you're working on, okay? You need 30 different assets. The time it will take you to make those 30 sculpts, those 30 assets with Vanilla Blender is just ridiculous. Let's just say that you're being paid, at least during your day job, what's going to be the minimum wage, which is $15 an hour. Essentially, if cleaning up a boolean takes you more than 3 hours, you've already paid for Mesh Machine without receiving Mesh Machine, the paid plugin. You've just wasted it. You've just thrown that money out into the wind with your time, because you're actually spending your time investing in not getting Mesh Machine. And I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense, because you'll be paying for it over and over and over and over again using nothing but Vanilla Blender. Now, I'm not assuming what your financial situation is, but this is just the line of reasoning that I'm using here in order for me to kind of convince myself I need this. I need it. It just doesn't make even a tiny bit of sense why I haven't got these paid plugins yet. Doesn't make any sense at all. Because I find myself, when I'm using Vanilla Blender, I'm playing it safe with Blender, making crappy models that have no detail whatsoever, because I don't want to make a sculpt overly convoluted or anything like that, because I won't have a video ready by the time I need to release it if I try any type of elaborate design with Vanilla Blender. I'm sure there's a number of you that feel the same, and for those of you that relate with what I'm talking about, all you need to do is jump onto Google and type in
Mesh Machine Purchase Blender Market,
and you'll be on this page. Or you can go ahead and type in
Hard Ops Purchase Blender Market,
or you type in
Box Cutter Purchase Blender Market,
and you'll be on these web pages that you see me on right now, and you can purchase these if you want, if you so desire. And so after this video, I plan on having more content centered on these paid plugins than using Vanilla Blender, at least in the future. That's how it's going to be. And why not? Seriously, why not? Because it's just a waste of time using Vanilla Blender. These are actually really easy to purchase. Now, they do have the Hard Ops and Box Cutter Ultimate Bundle, and these are really cool in completely changing the Blender workflow, and also when working with booleans. But the thing that I don't really trust with this particular page, with this ultimate bundle that has both Box Cutter and Hard Ops coming with it, is the fact that the video on the page doesn't even load up. I mean, there's some sort of error. And also, it doesn't really even mention which version of Box Cutter and Hard Ops that you're purchasing. It doesn't tell you which ones you're getting. So I'm willing to actually pay for these individually, even though it means paying more, because the version of Box Cutter and Hard Ops are displayed on those pages. So I know exactly what it is that I'm purchasing. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into this and try to purchase this stuff. So let's see, $40 purchase, added to cart. Okay, that's interesting. So let's see, let's go keep shopping. Okay, so where is my cart? You would think that there would be a icon for a cart. Become a creator, blog, help desk, market, statistics. What are the hearts? I don't understand any of that. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Box Cutter and go purchase, added to your cart, keep shopping, okay? And then Hard Ops, purchase, added to cart, view cart. Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, so it does have all, even though these are all separate little instances, it does have Hard Ops, Box Cutter, but it doesn't seem to have stress-free purchase, subtotal. Look. Yeah, it doesn't seem to have Mesh Machine. Okay, view cart right here. View cart. Okay, Mesh Machine seems to be a... Okay, I don't understand why I have that going on, where Mesh Machine is not even appearing here, but that's fine. So I'll just go ahead and continue to check out. I'm just going to use my PayPal. Okay, it says that my order was completed. Okay, so I guess I can now download these. Okay, so I'm just gonna open that in a separate window, see if that's necessary. Okay, that it wasn't entirely necessary. And then I'll click that. Okay, so Hard Ops is now installed, Box Cutter is now installed. I'm going to go into this other instance here, continue to checkout, and I'm going to use my PayPal. Okay, so the payment went through. It looks like we're still generating your download link. Please refresh page in a bit. Okay, Control R. Okay, cool. So Mesh Machine is now downloading. And this seems like it's a much more heavy-duty download. It's taking much more time than both Box Cutter and Hard Ops. But it's slowly but surely getting done. And there we have it. Okay, so immediately what you can see inside of my downloads folder here, I have Mesh Machine, Hard Ops, and Box Cutter, right? And so also inside of my, basically, you see pictures, Blender. This is my Blender file. I created a new file called add-ons. Currently it's empty. And the first task that I'm going to do is I'm just going to Control X on all three of these. And I'm just going to dump them into my add-ons folder. Okay? And now I'm inside of Blender right now. I'm going to go Edit, Preferences, Install. And then I just need to find my file. Okay, so I need to go into my pictures, and then I see Blender here, add-ons, and I'm going to start with Hard Ops first. Okay, we can see Hard Ops just appeared, and this may take a little bit of time, but okay, so it said it was not responding there just for a second. Okay, eventually, once it loads everything in, you tick the box, save preferences, right? Okay, now I'm just going to X out of Hard Ops. Hard Ops is still there. You can still see 3D view Hard Ops right there. And then I'm going to go install, and then Box Cutter. Double click on that. Okay, we can see Box Cutter is loading up, and just wait just a little while. Okay, it's still, okay, there we go. Save preferences, exit out of that, install Mesh Machine. Double click on that, wait a little bit. Okay, it's activated. Save preferences, and I do believe that's it. Okay, so I've spent a day educating myself on Box Cutter and a little bit on Hard Ops. I'm still kind of hazy on Hard Ops, but Box Cutter is kind of cool. Okay, so if I press N on my keyboard, N as in Nancy, and then click on Box Cutter, now this whole side panel, I don't really need it, so I'm going to press Control Spacebar, okay? And so when I go ahead and click and drag, oh wait, I need to have this object selected. So I can go ahead and click, keep my mouse button held down, and then drag it, and then let go, and then drag down. You can see that I've gone ahead and created a cut, just like I did at the very beginning of the video. But I don't necessarily need to do the exact same workflow that I did earlier. And the workflow to do the task that I'm going to do would be extremely convoluted inside of vanilla Blender. So if I go ahead and click and drag once again, and then drag down, and then press I, I'm able to have this little inset there, and you can actually see it. And then I can press T on my keyboard in order to change what that inset is. But I'm going to go ahead and make it much more dramatic. And there we have it. We have the same thing that I had at the very beginning. Now, if I press Control tilde on my keyboard, and the tilde key is to the left of the 1 key on the QWERTY portion of your keyboard, okay, I can go into my modifiers, and you can see that I have 2 booleans applied. I have this boolean on this side over here, and I have this boolean that's on the other side over there. Okay, now I can go ahead and add more cuts. I can go ahead and change the shape of my cut to being circular and then drag it down, which is stinking cool. I can create custom shapes. I can create n-gons, but I can do more than just cutting out shapes. I can go like so and scroll down, and let's actually go all the way down, and let's go through the help menu, and let's see what X does. So when I press X, okay, so it looks like I have a slice. That's cool. Let me press Q and select bevel, and then just drag my mouse around and see what it does, okay? Let's increase the segments to something like like 10. Okay, so some of it is going kind of wild and crazy, as you can see. So I have this really nice bevel, but some of it's just kind of nutty crazy. So I can go ahead and press Q and go ever scroll, and then scroll through my booleans, okay? And so what I want to do with this one is I want to kind of scale it down and grab it on the Z-axis and move it up. Okay, so that one's not freaking out. Okay, let me go to ever scroll once again and find the boolean cut that's creating the issue here. Okay, and then I'm just going to scale it, press S, and then press Shift Z so that it doesn't scale on the Z-axis and it makes less work for me. And then I'm going to grab it on the Y-axis and just kind of move it over here. And so that's good. And I have this really nice object here, and let me go ahead and hide this. I have this really nice complex object. Now, if this was vanilla Blender, okay, what I would have to do is I'd have to go into my modifier stack and select the primary object. And if I go File, I'd like go here and apply. Okay, so it doesn't look like I have to go here and click some weird button inside of the, you know, the object data properties. And so I'm clicking away at all of this, okay, on all of these booleans in order to apply them. And so that was an easier workflow, but that right there was actually even still too convoluted. Okay, so I have all of these booleans here, and there's no need for all of these booleans. Okay, I don't need to go click, 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 click for each one, okay? I don't need to do that. All that I need to do is press Q and then go to Operations, Smart Apply, okay? Boom, done. And I still have one modifier that still exists here, and it is bevel. Okay, so I guess, okay, yeah, the bevel. It didn't apply the bevel, which is excellent. Maybe I might still, because bevels are usually really destructive, and so they factored into the idea that sometimes some people may not own something like Mesh Machine. So that's cool. See how complex that was, and yet I was able to get it done in just a few clicks.
It's stinking cool.
Doing this in vanilla Blender, it takes 5 or 6 times the amount of clicks, sometimes way more clicks just to accomplish a task. And so, yeah, that is why I've decided to go with Hard Ops, Box Cutter, and Mesh Machine. I may purchase some more down the road, but that's essentially it. And I hope those of you that are interested in my work and progression in 3D and possibly even learning as I learn, I hope you guys are more excited for this than frustrated. And I'd also like to address a side point a little bit here. First of all, there a while ago I released a video, your first 2D animation in Blender. Okay, now that video is excellent. I love that video. I think it's extremely helpful. I've got tons and tons of people commenting on it that have enjoyed it, that the video has assisted and helped and all that, and that makes me extremely happy. But there are some of you that have asked, well, when are you gonna cover more on the grease pencil? I kind of hate animating frame by frame. I hate it. It's not enjoyable at all, and I would like to actually do more in 3D at this point in time. Now, that doesn't mean that I've completely abandoned grease pencil. Eventually down the road I will, and I'm saying down the road. This is going to take some time for me to eventually get to the point to where I'm going to bite the bullet and start working with 2D frame by frame animation. It's going to be a little while for me to convince myself to do that. But eventually down the road, I do plan on covering other parts of the workflow with grease pencil, like coloring your animations and adding shadows and stuff like that, highlights, yeah, all of that. Eventually I plan on covering all of that. It's just I've got other things that I feel like I need to do, and a general understanding of Blender is kind of essential. If all you know how to do is work in grease pencil in Blender, you're setting out for failure. That's my perception. So I'm trying to also kind of build all of the essential building blocks towards my education in Blender so that I can eventually get into grease pencil in the future. But it's also not just that. Like I said, I hate animating frame by frame with 2D animation. And so someday down the road, whether I need to eventually start a Kickstarter or whatever the heck I need to do, I have every intention of somehow getting Kakani features into Grease Pencil, okay? Now, right now, my channel is way too small for that. And so we're kind of in this state of limbo when it comes to me continuing to educate with Grease Pencil, as far as that's concerned. So I don't plan on waiting quite that long until I cover more with Grease Pencil. It's just that my interests have really kind of drifted a different direction. And the idea of me animating frame by frame, it sounds like mental anguish to me, unfortunately. That's just how I feel. And so if you're waiting for more Grease Pencil tutorials, you're going to be waiting for a while. And I'm saying a good long while. Okay? Those are just my thoughts and me wanting to address that specific topic. Okay? So, yeah. So, in conclusion, Hard Ops, Box Cutter, Mesh Machine, really cool stuff. I hope you guys are excited about this, and I hope you guys are willing to join me in on this particular adventure. Yeah, sounds great. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me, feel free to join my Discord. A link to my Discord is in the video description below. If you'd like to support this channel, you can feel free to purchase one of my t-shirts on my Teespring. A link to my Teespring is on the upper right corner of the screen right now. It's a picture of a t-shirt. Any support would be much appreciated. And if you've enjoyed this content and would like to see more, feel free to click on anything else that's appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.